for resources for secondary citizenship? Well, today on Resource Review, we'll be evaluating 3 that might just fit the bill. A CD-ROM that addresses racism, diversity and identity.
We're going to be looking for evidence as to what citizenship is, and we're going to be making a judgment at the end what it actually is and how it affects us.
A website that explores politics.
What I want to do today is look at how you would actually vote, how you come to decisions.
And a teacher resource book about political literacy. Find out what our panel of experts think here on Resource Review. Joining me to recommend today's resources is Jeremy Hayward. Jeremy is a lecturer in citizenship education at the Institute of Education. We also have Alice Carlisle, citizenship coordinator at John Kelly Girls Technology College in London. Joining us is Roger Emmett, senior advisor for history and citizenship for Staffordshire LEA. Thank you all very much for coming. Jeremy, let's begin with your first choice of resource, and it's the Trial and Error CD-ROM. Tell us a bit more about it and why this stands out for you.
Well, it's a comprehensive CD-ROM aimed at teachers, exploring the issue of racism, of identity and human rights. I think it stands out just for the sheer wealth of resources it contains. It's an enormous sort of plethora of sheets and information and pictures that a teacher can use, and in that sense, it's really a sort of a one-stop shop. If you want to tackle these issues, this is an excellent place for all teachers to start. OK, and this comes free from the DFES, is that right? That's right, yes. OK. Well, thank you very much. Before we go any further, let's have a look at Trial and Error in use. We gave it to teacher Gareth Hughes at Highcliffe School and Language College in Christchurch, Dorset, and he used it with his Year 10 tribunal.
In the lesson today, predominantly what I was trying to do was introduce the students to the concept of citizenship. We're going to be looking for evidence as to what citizenship is, and we're going to be making a judgment at the end what it actually is and how it affects us. The resource I was using today was a CD-ROM called Trial and Error. I particularly like the way it addresses the whole range of issues, but particularly that it introduces students to a very important aspect of citizenship, which is that of racism and race equality and inequality across the globe. When we're looking at citizenship, should they be proud of the Union Jack? Should they be able to speak English? The onus is on the teacher to actually give students evidence and information that asks the students to actually make a judgment once the lesson's reached its conclusion. So in terms of running a plenary session, it's invaluable. Have we actually got the evidence that we can use to substantiate our learning objectives? And by using the resource available, I was basically able to access a whole range of different sources, materials, clips, PowerPoint that I was able to use to introduce the students to the topic. I'm going to give you an example of 4 different people, 4 different citizens, OK? You know absolutely nothing about them. The students reacted very positively in class today to using it. For many of them, it was the first time that they've actually been challenged to think about what does citizenship mean to me.
Well, you don't always have to support the government, do you? So,
if I was to make any criticisms or to look at any ways in which the CD could be improved, I think my initial reaction was that it read very much like a textbook at the start. But once you actually get used to using the resources available, you see there's much more within it than at first meets the eye. So I think as a big strength is the actual catalogue of all the resources which are available online to be able to deliver the topics to the students.
Well, Jeremy, overall a very positive review from the teacher, but he did make this point about it having similarities with just a simple textbook. I mean, what does it offer that you don't get with a book?
I think that's a very valid point. I mean, it's aimed for teachers, so it's not something that students would explore themselves, and it's really one giant PDF document. And I would actually advise teachers, first off, just to print it all off and then have a look and use it from there. There are some additional things, some nice multimedia clips that you can use of photos, but once again, these could be things that you use on a printed page, so I don't think it is that different. I think its strengths don't lie in the interactivity. It lies in sort of the the sheer size of it, all the different topics it covers, and also the approach they're using, the sort of human rights approach to exploring issues of anti-racism and diversity.
OK. Alice, let me turn to you. What were your thoughts about the trial and error CD-ROM?
Well, the first impression was that there is an awful lot of resources, and I always find multimedia clips, as Jeremy said, and photographs very useful because I've got a whiteboard in my room, and students never fail to be quite affected by having a big picture or a clip, and it always prompts discussion. So that was my first impression. I also liked the fact that the way it was set out was there was key questions that were going to be addressed by the unit. Not hugely user-friendly, as Jeremy was pointing out. When I was just having a look at it on the computer, it was a lot of moving around, and I didn't really get an immediate sense of how to use it. And
so perhaps it could have better support for teachers, or just a better layout.
I think that would be helpful, actually. I mean, the best thing to do with it is to actually download the whole thing, and then you can look and select. One of the strengths is that there is an awful lot of material there, but they are standalone lessons, so you can dip in and out and be selective once you've got the whole package. And of course, the beautiful thing about it is it's free.
Finally, Jeremy, who's it best targeted at, pupil age group wise?
Well, it says key stage 3 to 4, and I think a lot of the worksheets are quite simple in their layout, and if you, as a teacher, you could adapt it by drawing in some of the support materials up to key stage 4, or perhaps simplify it to key stage 3. So I think it's genuinely flexible.
Great, OK. Well, now let's move on to Jeremy's second choice of resource, and it's a website, Do Politics, that also comes in a hard copy version, the Democracy Cookbook. Can you just explain the resource as it stands, Jeremy, and again, why you like it?
Yes, I mean, I know it largely as a website. It's produced by the Electoral Commission, and it's a whole range of activities that teachers can use to get students interested in politics in the first place. They've put together a whole load of sort of lessons that you could dip into that try and draw out the political dimensions of our ordinary life. There's very interactive ways of learning. They're getting the students moving around, and some of them getting to think in very different ways. And I think it's quite different from other resources that are out there.
All right. Well, let's see the Do Politics website and the Democracy Cookbook in use. We visited John Cabot City Technology College in Bristol, where teacher Frank Ward is using it with his class.
So your group, yes. Your group kind of half, is that right? I've been using the Democracy Cookbook. It's a resource that contains activities for teachers to lead in the classroom. What we've been doing is highlighting the importance of politics for them, that it affects every part of their lives. What I want to do today is look at how you would actually vote, how you come to decisions. We've taken a scenario from the Democracy Cookbook. And this scenario said, imagine that they've crashed on a desert island and they've got to decide if there is a leader amongst them and how they actually vote for different things. So, for instance, they were asked what would happen if somebody stole food or water from your group. People caught stealing should have 50 lashes. Anybody agree with that? Anybody agree to the idea of lashes for stealing? I think that if a teacher really wants to encourage students to develop ideas of their own, there are a lot of student-led activities in there that they could put to a class. I'd like to, in an IT lesson or in a citizenship lesson, encourage the students to go on the web and to go on this resource. But apart from one video on there, which I showed to the class in this lesson, there weren't many things that I think students would be interested in.
I personally think it's important to vote because people die for our vote.
This is a resource I'd like to build into my lessons. I can definitely see the activities, such as the ones that we use today, taking part in the curriculum to deliver citizenship.
Well, Jeremy, we saw there the Democracy Cookbook in use. Does the teacher have to put in quite a lot of work before the lesson?
Most of them are quite standalone, and they tend to, there's sort of introductions to a topic, introductions to politics, introductions to citizenship, introductions to voting. I think the teacher would have to do a lot of work to take the issues further. and you know that's a slight criticism of the site. It doesn't have much content. It tends to be about discussing why are we interested in politics, why is it important. It doesn't go then to explore specific political issues. So I think the teacher would have to do a lot of work to make a unit of lessons on a topic.
All right. Well, with that criticism in mind, Roger, what are your thoughts?
I think it's fine if the teacher uses it, downloads the material. There's some very good ideas in it. The bingo activities, things like that are good. But as a website, I don't think it's good as an interactive site. I think it's very flat. I could see it actually putting a lot of kids off unless there was an awful lot of teacher direction, as Jeremy says.
I mean, Jeremy, you thought the website's really a teacher resource?
For that reason that Roger picked up, it's really not very student-friendly, and they probably could have a revamped site for pupils. I think would be very good.
All right. Alice, what were your thoughts?
I thought some of the activities that it wanted the teacher to do, one was to give them £5 gift to pass around a £5 gift voucher. Did you read that one? Yeah. And they had to imagine how they would spend it, and I just thought it was a bit lame.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it would require quite a bit of teacher preparation. I thought the website was a bit dry, but great for a resource about the nuts and bolts of democracy and voting.
Well, now let's move on to Jeremy's third choice of resource. And this is not free, which makes it stand apart. It's the Citizens and Society Teacher Resource Pack that comes in at £40. So you've got to spend some money here. Why would you bother?
Good question. I mean, generally, I'm not a fan of textbooks with citizenship. I think they take years to produce, they go out of date very quickly, they tend to focus on very dull facts, the number of MPs, and not contentious issues. I think this gets around some of these problems by taking a slightly different approach to citizenship. Instead of looking at specific issues in society which would date, it goes for a more conceptual approach, trying to get students to understand issues like tolerance, like equality, like patriotism, enabling the teacher to get the sort of the concepts cleared that would then enable them to look at specific issues.
What did you think, Alice?
It kind of introduces concepts through questions, which then they pad out with practical, concrete examples. So, for example, we're talking about tax, and tax can be quite difficult for students to understand. They talk about a burger tax, something that students would...
They can relate to.
Yeah, they can relate to. So I did like the approach of it.
Well, that's good. Roger, final comment from you.
It's actually very, very, very good in getting kids to discuss. Right. So therefore it's interactive, very simply laid out, simple to understand. I think actually it's probably best used at Key Stage 4. Yeah. I think younger children would struggle with it, but very, very teacher friendly.
Excellent.
And well worth the money actually.
Well, the panel certainly liked it. Thank you very much, Jeremy, for 3 excellent resources. I'm afraid that's all we've got time for today. But to recap, the 3 we discussed were Trial and Error CD-ROM from the DFES, the Do Politics website and Democracy Cookbook from the Electoral Commission, and finally, Citizens and Society, book from Hodder and Stoughton. For more information about all of the resources that we've discussed today, or to post your own comments about other resources for secondary citizenship, go to our website. It's teachers.tv/resource review. Or if you want to, email us, resourcereview@teachers.tv. So I'd like to say a very big thank you to our panel, to Jeremy, to Alice and to Roger. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Resource Review. Bye-bye.